Listen, before you take to the sky, strapped to some aluminum, tied to some string and some fabric, there's a few things that you want to know. Firstly, paramotors are without a doubt going to be the most fun thing you will ever do. Having the freedom and ability and opportunity to go where it is that you want, when it is that you want, is so free. That being said, there are a few things that you should know when you're getting into paramotors. Firstly, let's talk about the rules that we have to follow. There are 4 main rules. Number 1, we can't fly over a congested area. So think of it like this. If your phone falls out of your pocket, it shouldn't land on anyone. Number 2, you can't fly in a national park. Number 3, you can't fly within 5 miles of a major airport. And number 4, you can't go over 17,999 feet. Not that you would want to without oxygen, because it's suggested over 14,000 feet. Now, moving on, one of the coolest things with paramotors is how little space you really need to take off. Because unlike a traditional airplane where you've got to have a ginormous runway, you've got to have lots of space to take off and land, you can't hardly land, in the middle of nowhere unless you're flying a bush plane. A paramotor, you can freaking take off in a soccer field down the street from your house. You need a whole whopping 30 to 50 feet to truly get into the sky. I mean, the launch site that I launch at is tiny. You really don't need a lot of space to take off. And even cooler than that, you need less space to land. So people always ask me, like, hey, how much space do I need? And the answer is not a lot. You don't need a lot of space. You can drive down to the football field at the end of your neighborhood and launch out of the football field. Now, one of the coolest things with paramotors is once you are up, you can pretty much go wherever you want to go. With a 2 to 4 hour flight time on a single tank of gas and a 100-mile range, you can freaking cruise all the way up to the 12,000-foot mountain 20 miles from you and back with ease. And you could do so safely, because one of the coolest things about paramotors is just how safe paramotors are. I would go as far to say that you are at a higher risk of getting hurt on your way to go flying than you ever are actually flying. With paramotors, there's only one real thing that's going to get you hurt, and that's hitting the ground. Now, with proper training, proper instruction, equipment, and good judgment, that's really low risk. If you fly in good conditions, good equipment, you know what you're doing, the chances of you doing something stupid that causes you to hit the ground or being in a situation that causes you to hit the ground is super little. Modern technology with the flat top paramotor and the Dominator paraglider means there's very few times where equipment failure or unsafe equipment leads to injury. If you're flying those two things, you really aren't going to have a problem in that situation. Plus, with the flat top paramotor, it's there to keep you safe. So, moving on from that, the first thing you got to do when you're getting into paramotors, and the first thing that has to happen is you've got to learn how to do it. It is not as easy as it looks on the internet. You don't just strap into it, run into the sky, and bam, you're flying. Although, once you learn to do it, it's really, really easy. But you have to learn first. Now, the problem with training is that you can't just do it anywhere. We live in Salt Lake City, Utah. However, we train in Corpus Christi, Texas, which is 1,500 miles from where we live in Salt Lake City, Utah. Yes, we drive 3 days to get to our training site because that's how important the location is. Reason why is because in order to learn to fly a paramotor, you need wind. Here in Utah, the wind don't blow, man. I look outside on any given day and the wind isn't blowing. But down there in Corpus Christi, Texas, it is known as the Windy City of Texas. There is always good conditions. So you can go down there and within a 10-day period of time, you can get 40 to 80 to 100 hours of true practice. And I'll be honest with you, if you're learning how to fly an aircraft, at least if I was learning to fly an aircraft, I would want as much practice controlling that aircraft as possible in that 10-day period. And that's what we get down there in Corpus Christi, Texas. You can practice for 80 freaking hours. Now, once you learn how to fly the paramotor, once you've flown it, you don't need any wind to continue to fly it. Here in Utah, 90% of the time when I fly in no wind. Total piece of cake, no problem. It's actually the most desirable flying conditions. The problem is you can't learn to fly in no wind because you have to be able to control that glider. You have to practice going through the motions over and over and over and over again. You've got to do what's called glider control, and you need wind to do that. And with this skill set in particular, it's really largely a reflex-based skill set. And that requires practice, repetition, and doing the same thing over and over and over again. Now, once you learn how to fly, it's a 10-day training class down in Corpus Christi, Texas. You return home ready to go. You've got your equipment, you set it up, you go out and you go flying. There's no more question. You know how to do it. It's really a simple process. Now, one thing with the training, at least our training, is that you don't just learn how to control that glider. You learn all the other stuff that you need to learn. You learn where you can launch, where you can't launch, how to pick an LZ, how to pick a landing spot. All of those things you get in that training class. You learn about the weather, you learn about rules, you learn about TFRs, you learn how to read maps. You learn everything that you need to learn. One amazing thing with the paramotor community is that it is a huge community. We're all a big, happy family, at least in the flat top community, where we gather on a regular basis. We have fly-ins, we go to events, we travel, we have group flying activities where we'll go explore some remote, ridiculous, crazy, cool location together. We're constantly getting together. And that, my friend, is the most beautiful part about Paramotors, is that you're always connected with that family. It becomes more of a family than it does just a community. And I love it. I love it. Next year, going into 2022, Flat Top Paramotors is planning 2 separate fly-ins, one in the springtime, one in the fall time. Stay tuned for more information on that. If you want to get into paramotors, if you want to learn how to fly this aircraft, go to flyflattop.com or call us personally at 800-707-2525, where we will help you sign up for training and get the right equipment for you. This is Trevor Steele, and I am signing out. I'll see you in the next video.